Good afternoon, everybody. Today we will be talking about Bernie Sanders. This video will not be about Democratic candidates or any other candidates. It will be specifically about Bernie Sanders, his campaign, his beliefs, his ideology, the future, and his past career. Bernie Sanders is not a new figure in politics in America. He's been around since the 70s, especially in Vermont, where he campaigned against poverty, the drug war, the Iraq war, the Gulf War, and was generally a supporter of civil rights and a supporter of social welfare and security. And he's been doing that since the last 40 years or even 50, since the 70s in Vermont. And he's grown to prominence and now is popular among Democratic candidates. And he's one of the major candidates that will most likely be the one who will face Trump in the 2020 election. And so, to speak about Sanders, we must speak about his what so-called ideology or belief. He calls himself a democratic socialist, attempting to mimic the Scandinavian model in Scandinavia, where they have huge social welfare nets, where they have high tax, but also their citizens are more well off than Americans, and have more how do I say this, have a higher degree of education. All of them go to university for free, and it's provided by the government. Healthcare is provided for free, such as within Canada, and generally they have huge social safety nets that protect the poor and unemployed, and generally make it an egalitarian state. However, the problem with this is that Bernie Sanders mistitled himself. In fact, Scandinavia does not call itself socialist, nor are they had, nor do they have a socialist government, but rather they have a social democracy, essentially. Uh, similar, essentially, what Sanders is a social democrat. People who favor social justice, social security nets, welfare, and generally things that Sanders promotes in his campaigns. Sanders mistitled himself mainly due to Cold War era propaganda, where anything that was not laissez-faire capitalism or had any form of social security was called communism. Even FDR during the 1940s with his New Deal was called a communist, although we know for sure he's not a communist. So essentially, Bernie Sanders is rather not a democratic socialist, but rather a social democrat. Social democracy is a really popular ideology, especially in Europe, mainly due to social democrats. Social democrats used to be socialists in the old, but after World War One, there was a split issue among the socialists, and eventually the uh, social democrats no longer became socialists and rather became capitalists and became the people we know today. Famous socialist parties are the SPD, the Social Democratic Party of Germany, uh, and most of, if not all of, European countries have social democratic parties that have a huge share of popularity. Bernie Sanders. So let's go back to Bernie Sanders. So Bernie Sanders, how do I say this? When he came to 2016, many people were excited for his promises of welfare, free, universal health care, and free college, and people really supported this because many people were left out of opportunities mainly because they could not afford to go to college. And many people to this day cannot afford to go to college without taking student loans. And those student loans are often predatory and leave students in debts for decades, even for the rest of their life. And it caused a problem where students risk being in debt forever or not going to college. And so Bernie's solution to this was making college universally free. And so currently, however, we know that in 2016 the Democratic Party refused Bernie Sanders and opted for Hillary. However, after Hillary's failure in the 2016 election, we know for sure Bernie Sanders might not be kicked out from being the representative of the Democratic Party in the 2020 election. And as of right now, the Democratic Party has many promising candidates and many popular candidates, such as Ocasio-Cortez, Mike Bloomberg, Elizabeth Warren, and many more, who are currently running. And I myself, living in Texas, see them send their ads to me as of right now. As of right now, 15 minutes ago, I saw an advertisement for a Democratic Party candidate who wishes to go against Trump. Yeah. And it just shows that how the Democratic Party might have a split, although it's unlikely considering if the Democratic Party splitted, it would only benefit the Republicans. So maybe they might form a united coalition. However, that has never happened in American history, as I know. So the question is, who will lead the Democratic Party? And many people supported Andrew Yang. However, he left after he did not gain much popularity, which is sad. Maybe he'll come during the next election. I honestly think he might. So he's going to. So he dropped out, and he said he'd promise to support whoever becomes the nominee for the presidential election. Bernie Sanders, I believe, in my own opinion, seems the most likely person. He already established himself as a popular and prominent candidate in the 2016 election, and he most likely will win the next one, mainly because he's just so famous. However, there are other prominent figures. However, I do not believe they have as much recognition in their name as Bernie Sanders does. And so I doubt that any other candidate except Bernie Sanders will become the presidential nominee. So thank you.